The African Savannah, a place of raw, untamed beauty, where life and death dance in a delicate, eternal rhythm. For wildlife cinematographer Mark Thompson, this was his office, his sanctuary. He'd spent decades capturing the majesty of this land, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to find. One sweltering afternoon, while tracking a herd of elephants, a glint of white caught his eye. It was unnatural, a ghost against the golden grass. His heart hammered against his ribs as he raised his binoculars. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was a lion cub, pure white, a rare albino, a living legend. But the sight that should have been a moment of pure joy was a scene of horror. The cub was frantically nudging its mother, a magnificent lioness whose leg was caught in the brutal, rusty jaws of a poacher's trap. The lioness was exhausted, her breaths shallow. The raw, angry wound on her leg told a story of a long and desperate struggle. The tiny albino cub, no bigger than a house cat, let out a desperate, mewling cry, a sound that pierced the air and went straight to Mark's soul. He knew the poachers would be back. They always came back. Leaving them was a death sentence, but approaching a cornered, injured lioness, even to help, was a risk most would never take. For Mark, there was no choice. He was a witness, and inaction was not an option. He grabbed his emergency kit, a heavy-duty bolt cutter, and his satellite phone. This rescue was on. His first call was to Dr. Arisa Vet with a local conservation trust. The connection was patchy, the signal weak. "Aris, it's Mark. I've got a lioness in a leg hold trap, and her cub, it's an albino." The line crackled. "An albino. Mark, you know how valuable that is to poachers. You need to get them out now." The plan was simple, but terrifyingly dangerous. Mark would have to sedate the mother, cut her free, and then transport both of them to a temporary holding area where Aris could treat the wound. The nearest safe spot was an old ranger outpost, a solid 10 miles away across treacherous terrain. The clock was ticking. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Twilight on the savannah wasn't just beautiful. It was the hour of the predator. Mark loaded the tranquilizer dart, his hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. He aimed for the lioness's powerful thigh, his finger hovering over the trigger. He whispered, "I'm here to help you, girl." The dart flew true. The lioness roared, a sound of fury and pain that shook the very ground, before her eyes grew heavy and she slumped to the earth. The little white cub, terrified, scrambled to hide behind its mother's now still form. Mark moved quickly, the heavy bolt cutters feeling like an extension of his arms. The metallic snap as the trap sprang open was the sweetest sound he'd ever heard. The lioness was free, but their ordeal was far from over. Now, for the hardest part. He had to get an unconscious, 400-pound lioness and her precious cub onto the back of his modified Land Rover. He used a winch and a heavy-duty canvas sling, his muscles straining with every inch he gained. The cub watched his every move, its blue eyes wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Once the mother was secured, Mark gently scooped up the little ball of white fur. The cub didn't struggle. It was as if it understood. It trembled in his arms, a tiny, warm weight against his chest. He placed it carefully in a secured crate in the cab with him, where he could keep an eye on it. The journey began. Driving through the savannah at night is like navigating another planet. The world is alive with sounds and shadows. Every rustle in the grass could be a threat. Their path was immediately blocked by a wide, deep river, a known territory for Nile crocodiles. There was no bridge, no other way around. He'd have to ford it. Taking a deep breath, Mark engaged the four-wheel drive and eased the truck into the dark water. The headlights cut through the blackness, revealing pairs of glowing red eyes that submerged and resurfaced around them. Crocodiles. He could feel the truck lurch as one of the massive reptiles bumped against a tire. He kept his foot steady on the accelerator, pushing through the murky water, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The cub in the crate beside him let out a soft whimper. After what felt like an eternity, the wheels found purchase on the opposite bank, and they pulled themselves out of the water, leaving the hungry reptiles behind. They were safe from the river, but the ordeal had cost them precious time. The sedation on the lioness was beginning to wear off. He could hear her stirring in the back, a low, guttural growl rumbling from her chest. Mark drove faster, the truck bouncing over the uneven terrain. The water he'd brought was nearly gone, a casualty of the scorching day. Dehydration was setting in. His head pounded, his vision blurred at the edges. He had to keep going. For the cub. For its mother. Just as he thought things couldn't get worse, a new set of eyes appeared in his headlights. Giggling, whooping, sounds echoed through the night. Hyenas, a large pack, drawn by the scent of blood from the lioness's wound, began to circle the slow-moving vehicle. They were snapping at the tires, their powerful jaws capable of tearing through steel. Mark knew he couldn't outrun them in this terrain. He slammed on the brakes, grabbed the only weapon he had left, the flare gun. He fired a bright red flare into the sky. It exploded with a blinding light, momentarily scattering the pack. They were confused, but not for long. He fired another, and another, using the disorienting bursts of light to push his way through the cackling horde. The hyenas, wary of the fire and noise, finally gave way, melting back into the shadows. Shaking, Mark pressed on. The faint lights of the ranger outpost were finally visible on the horizon, a beacon of hope in the vast darkness. He pulled up to the outpost just as Dr. Eris and his team arrived. Relief washed over him so powerfully his knees almost buckled. They worked under the portable floodlights, Eris expertly cleaning and stitching the lioness's deep wound. "She's strong," Eris said, looking up at Mark. "The wound is clean. Shirikava." "You saved her life, Mark. You saved both of them." Mark looked over at the little white cub, now safely curled up near its sedated mother. Finally at peace, he had faced down crocodiles, dehydration, and a pack of hyenas. And looking at the two lions, he knew, without a doubt, he would do it all again in a heartbeat. The next 2 weeks were a blur of careful monitoring and care. The lioness, whom the team affectionately named Hope, recovered at a remarkable pace. Her wound healed cleanly, and her strength returned. The cub, now named Ghost for his ethereal appearance, grew bolder each day, playfully batting at his mother's tail and exploring every corner of their temporary enclosure. He was a symbol of resilience, a tiny beacon of life against all odds. Mark documented every moment, not as a cinematographer, but as a guardian. He captured Ghost's first clumsy pounce, Hope's patient grooming, and the unbreakable bond between mother and son. This wasn't just a story about survival. It was a story about love. The day finally came to release them back into the wild. It was a bittersweet moment. They transported Hope and Ghost to a remote, protected area of the reserve, far from any poacher snares. Mark opened the gate. Hope hesitated for a moment, then stepped out onto the familiar soil, her head held high. She turned and gave Mark a long, steady look. It wasn't a look of gratitude in the human sense, but a look of deep, profound acknowledgement, an understanding that passed between two beings who had shared a journey of survival. Then, with Ghost trotting confidently by her side, she disappeared into the tall grass, a queen returning to her kingdom. Mark watched until the last flicker of white from the cub's coat vanished. He had returned a legend to the wild. His footage would tell their story to the world, a powerful reminder of what's at stake, and a testament to the fact that one person, in the face of impossible odds, can make all the difference. Thanks for watching our story today. If you were moved by the rescue of Hope and Ghost, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible wildlife encounters. Every follow helps support conservation efforts and brings these vital stories to light. We'll see you on the next adventure.